Boker Tov, Shavua Tov. Today's daf is daf Samach Aleph in Sahedrin, as we learned for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael V'Sun Batzar V'Shivya. Now, we got yesterday to the second line on daf Samach Aleph, but let's quickly look at the last few lines on Samach Hamid Bey, because that's really the beginning of the sugya. About 3 lines from the bottom page. Amalei Rava Bar Rav Chanan Labaye. What happened? Yeah, in yesterday's daf we saw that what's the main isser of doing avodah zarah? Worshipping avodah zarah in the way that it's normally done. So we said that the pasuk talks about zoveach lelohim yacharam, that if you slaughter, if you make a shchita, you bring a carbon to the avodah zarah. That's the main pasuk that says there when it comes to avodah zarah. So why does it mention that? Why does it mention that after all the other isurim, other kinds of whether you're makter murim, whether you burn incense or you pour a libation or you bow down, all these things you're chayiv for, chayiv misa. So why does it mention zoveach? So the Gemara says to teach you that you're only chayiv misa, that anything which is the done like avodas pnim, anything just like shechting and bringing a carbon, shechting in the base of Mikdash, all the things that are inside the base of Mikdash, if you do those chas v'chalil to avodah zarah, you're chayiv. The same way, all things like that. So in other words, to tell you, not only if you do it, of course, the Mishnah also said, the Gemara explained that, why does it say, to tell you whether you do it in the normal way or the not normal way. In other words, if you do a zivuach or aktara or nisach or shtachava, even if that's not the normal way that avodah zarah is worshipped, you're still chayav. Fine, but why do you talk about zaveach? To tell you that anything that's done on the inside in the base of Mikdash, anything that's done that way, that's already automatically included. To teach you, like the Gemara says at the beginning of the wide lines, in other words, anything which is a regular avodah in the base of Mikdash, to the Rabbanu Shalom, and you do that to an avodah zarah, you're chayiv for that. Okay, excluding bowing down. We don't bow down except for the Kohen Gadol, on Yom Kippur, etc. You don't bow down normally. That's not a regular avodah that's done in the base of Mikdash. So that's not included. So that's why we need a special pasuk to tell us that you have to, that bowing down to avodah zarah is you're chayiv for that too. As it says, like we had in yesterday's pasuk, don't bow down. So that's this. So the point is though that we learn out from Zoveach just like those things. So the Gemara says, what about hishtachava, which is not normally done in the base of Mikdash? Okay, we have a special pasuk for that. But so now at the 3-4 lines from the bottom of the page on Samach Hamid Beis, the Gemara said, this is yesterday's daf. Amalei Rava Rav Chanan Labaye. Maybe we should learn out from hishtachava, where it says don't bow down. Maybe we learn from there, Kluo, to teach me that even if it's not something that's done in the base of Mikdash normally, if it's not done in Mikdash normally, but it is an avoda of kavod, you're bowing down. Maybe we should learn from that anything that involves kavod, you're also chayiv for. So what do I need zoveach for? What do I need the pasuk of zoveach lelohim yacharam? If we're going to learn from mishtachava, from those mishtachava, that you're chayiv on all things, even if they're not done in the base of Mikdash. If you do those things for avodah zarah, you're chayiv there too. So what? So it's maybe that's what we should learn from mishtachava. And what is zoveach for? Maybe zoveach to teach me a different halacha. Remember in Pigel we had there's an isra of Pigel when it comes to kachim. If you do any of the avodas, any of the 4 avodas, shchita, kabbalah, chazrika, and you do it with a kavana that you're going to be zorik the dam, or eat or burn the emurim, or eat the food, chutz lezman, that's pigul. The thing is usher. Now, you're not chayiv misa for that when it comes to the base of Mikdash, but you've been mefagel the carbon. The carbon's ruined. If you did it but kavana, you have to pay for it. Okay, so maybe the zobeach is going to teach him. Let's say, listen to this. Let's say I brought a carbon to the base of Mikdash, and I bring it to the Rabbanu Shalom, I'm doing it properly, but I have a kavana that I'm going to be zorik the dam from avodah zarah. So maybe that's what zoveach them, that if you bring a carbon, even if you brought it to the Rabbanu Shalom, you brought it to the base of Mikdash, be a kavana that you're going to be maktu the emurim or zorik the dam for avodah zarah. Maybe that ruins it too. That's also pickle. On the condition that you're going to be zarek the dam or lahakter chelba or to burn the fats for avodah zarah. Rabbi Yochanan says asur. We're at the top of Samach Aleph now. Rabbi Yochanan learns out from pigel. Just like regular pigul, if you have a kavan of chutz l'zman or chutz l'makom, you've ruined the carbon. The same thing over here. So anichal Rabbi Yochanan. So I understand according to Rabbi Yochanan, you can't tell me that Zoveach is teaching me that. What was the whole kasha? Why don't you say that Ishtachava teaches me that even if I do something which is not the normal way of worshiping this Avodah Zarah, but since it's bekavod, anything like that would be responsible, you would be chayav for. And Zoveach is to teach me that Machashmin Levoda, that if you had a kavana on a regular carbon in the base of Mikdash, that you're going to be Zarek the Dam for Avodah Zarah, you're chayav there. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's not necessary because I already learned it out from Pigul. But a Rish Lakish who says that so he doesn't say that, you don't learn it out from Pigul. So maybe this pasuk, maybe Zoveach teaches me this halacha. This is what we have to. Maskul Rapap, what kind of a kasha Rabbi Yochanan lo boikra? Even Rabbi Yochanan, wouldn't you need a pasuk to tell me Zoveach? In other words, Zoveach is still to come to teach me that you're chayiv in a case like that. Why? Because Ad kan come Rabbi Yochanan Allah so Rabbi Yochanan el behema. All Rabbi Yochanan says is it's pigul. Like I said before, when you're mafagel an animal, you bring a korban amanas, you can resort to dam in 2 days. That's or even tomorrow. Resort to dam, you have to resort to dam the same day. Even at night, you can't do it. You're right on the chutz man. So the animal is pigul. So Rabbi Yochanan says this is also pigul. Fine. So Rabbi Yochanan says the behemoth is pigul. His behemoth is no good. But that's not avodah zarah. So maybe you do need Zoveach to teach me, even according to Rabbi Yochanan, as your kasha is even better. You think it's only kasha on Rish Lakish who says he doesn't hold of pigul, but it doesn't learn out machashmi v'lavara from pigul. So learn it out from this pasuk. According to Rabbi Yochanan, you also need to learn it out. Teach me that Zoveach l'kim yachoram. Yachoram means you're going to die. Yachoram means you're going to be killed. So if you worship avodah zarah, you're going to be killed. What do you mean worshiping? Now we want to say that you learn out any kind of worship. Zoveach teaches me that even Mechashim Le'avod is also a kind of a worship, and you be chayiv there too. Maybe that's what the pasuk is for. So the kasha is even better. No, the kasha is even worse. Even Rish Lakish, do you really need a pasuk for that? Rish Lakish only says that the behema is not pigul. Pigul means you had a bad machshava. So you want to say that what? That if you had a bad machshava, not only the machshava of chutz l'zman, you had a machshava. Your machshava was you're going to zarek the dam for avodah zarah. That's so there Rish Lakish says, okay, that's not pigul. Pigul is you bring a carbon in the base of Mikdash with a machshava that you're going to be zarek the dam, let's say tomorrow or on a wrong place. But for avodah zarah, you can't extrapolate to that. So ad kan lo shaksh mi boy kra ad kan lo kosher Rish Lakish ela behema. The animal is not pigul. But listen, if you did something like that, you did any kavana, you're going to be zarek the dam for avodah zarah. Of course, that's you're chayiv for that. Of course, that's avodah zarah. If you bow down to a mountain, we learned before, and we're going to have it again, right? It says that al ha'arim agvoim, right? You can make an idol on the mountain, but you can't turn the mountain into an idol. Let's say you bow down to the mountain. Let's the whole Sibur, like Irdi Dachas, they bow down to a mountain. The har mutter vov the basav. The har is mutter. The mountain you can't turn the mountain into avodah zarah, but the person who worshipped it, or the people who worshipped it, are killed besayif. If they did it as a tzibur, it's besayif. Otherwise, it would be a skila. Okay, but the point is that even according to Rish Lakish, you don't need a pasuk of Zoveach Elokim Yachram to teach me that if you did some sort of an avod in the Beis Hamikdash with a kavana that you can be zorek the dam, that you'll be chayiv misa for that. Of course, you're chayiv misa. You're chayiv misa if you did a worship avodah zarah in any normal way. We had also the pasuk. We're going to have it again. That Echa Yavdu. How did they do it? My pasuk's going to later on. How did the goyim worship? I'd like to worship the same way. Meaning, if you did it in a normal way, of course you're chayiv. So if people bow down to mountains, that's not considered an abnormal. So of course you'll be chayiv misa for that. So again, that's not a kasha. The whole kasha falls away. Rav Barachan's kasha tabaya. Maybe Shtachava teaches me that any kind of worship bekavod, even if it's not normal, should be chayiv for. But then what do you need zoveach for? So the fact that you don't have an excuse for what zoveach is for, therefore, it must be that you don't learn that way. You don't learn from shtachava to everything else. Zoveach teaches me that the only kind of avoda that you're chayiv for is something that's in the Beis Hamikdash, that's done in the Beis Hamikdash, or unless the pasuk specifically said it, like hishtachava. But according to the Kasha, that he said what? That maybe you learn out from Hishtachava that anything that's done bekavod, even if it's not done inside the base mikdash, you're chayav for, and therefore what? And zoveach is for something else like mechash mevoda, kulo, right? So if that's what he wants to say, that was his kasha. Maybe Shtach was to teach me a general cloud. That was his words. That anything done bekavod, even if it's not done in the base mikdash, you're chayav for. So what do you do with this pasuk of Echiyavdu? Echiyavdu has you only do it. Echiyavdu hagoyim. How do they worship? Teaching me that I want to do it like they do it, only the normal way, right? Only the derech. One is the way that's kedarka to do the avoda. What does it come to exclude? What does that come to exclude? Because even you're saying that the Hishtachava tells you that any avoda, even if it's not kedarka, that's not the normal way that's worship, but it's bekavod, that you're chayav for. So what does Echayav do come to exclude? Maybe it's come to tell me that it's excluding a case if a person defecates himself to an avodah zarah that they normally bring karbonos to, and you defecated yourself to avodah zarah. Maybe it's going to tell you that you're not chayiv in a case like that. Well, that's mishtachava nafka. We learn it from mishtachava because that's mashtachava derech kibud is the derech kavod. It really is like kibud kavod, like doing it properly, doing it kedarka with honor. In other words, it's not the normal way that they worship that avodah zarah, but it's still bowing down is something that's kavod. Everybody would agree that defecating is not kavod. And bowing down is covered, even though that avodah zarah is not worship bekavod, but you learn from mishtachava that it's got to be dafka covered. I've called derech covered. Maybe it means this. Maybe it means if you defecated yourself in front of Markulis. Markulis was the avodah zarah that they put 3 stones together like in a triangle, and they threw stones at it, which is also bizayim. So maybe it's come to exclude that. So I might think, since the way you worship Markulis anyway is with shame, with this in a inappropriate or whatever you want to call that, and a non-honorific way that you threw stones at it. I've called b'zayin, so maybe you're chayiv there, even if you defecated in front of it too. Maybe you're chayiv there too. Kamashma did you're not based on echayavdu. In other words, you have to work. The way you worship Markulis is by throwing stones. Hishtachava tells me that if you bow down to it, that's also you're chayiv there too. But if you defecated in front of avodah zarah that you threw stones at, that you normally threw stones at, you're potter from that because it's echiyavda. That's not how they worship it. And Ishtachava doesn't tell you. Ishtachava normally excludes anything that's not kavod, but this here by Markolis, you don't worship it bekavod anyway. So you might think any kind of non-kavod way, any kind of disrespectful way, just like you worship Markolis by throwing stones at it, which is considered disrespectful. The same way you might think that defecating also you should be chayav for it because it's worshipped anyway in a disrespectful manner. Kamash Mulan, though you don't say that. Echiyavdu teaches me no, even if it's disrespectful, but it's not the normal way to do it to be potter. What about this kasha? This Rav Blazer said, let's say you slaughter an animal, which is certainly kavod, for markulis, which is normally done by throwing stones. How do you know? Don't slaughter any more animals to these demons. We don't need it for kedarka. We already know it's got to be only the derech tenu inyan l'shalo kedarka. So shalo kedarka mishtachava nafka. Don't I learn out shalo kedarka already from mishtachava that it's got to be bekavod? So what do I need this pasuk of lo yizbechod as zevchem for? Hasam b'zabeich lahachas. No, there's something different. You shouldn't slaughter animals even if you don't mean for kavod. You're not doing it to honor or to respect or to worship the avodah zarah. You're doing it lahachas. You're doing it just to start up with it. You shouldn't do that either. Lahachas Rashi says, you're over and alav. You're not chayiv misa for that. But let's say you go to an avodah zarah and you just do lahachas. You say, hey, I want to, you're supposed to destroy the avodah zarah, but don't slaughter an animal to it, right? You're supposed to destroy it. Abei tabdum, right? You're supposed to destroy the avodah zarah.
In Mitzrayim, that would be really lahachas.
Right.
Because they worship them.
Right. Yeah, wherever they worship it, be lahachas. Lahachas, you're just trying to show your frustration with it, right? Okay. All right, so that's the discussion. Now we come to another discussion here. Rav Amnuna Irkaslei Ture. Now, really, I take a quick look at Daf Samach Zayin. Daf Samach Zayin, it tells you laws of Mesis. Mesis is an insider. An insider is chayiv skila, right? And the mediach means he incites them for for the iridachas. The iridachas, they're all killed besayef, and their money is destroyed. All their assets are destroyed. But the masis, whether he's a masis, meaning he incites one person or an entire city, in the case of Adiach, either way, he's chayiv skila. So it says over there at the end of the first mission on Daf Samach Zayin, it says over there, how is the masis? They're talking about how does the masis work? What is he doing? It tells you that you're supposed to even lay traps for him. You don't try to find him innocent. You only look for, you try to fool him. If he tells you come do avodah zarah, you could say, listen, oh, my friend is also interested in this. Can you say it again in front of him to try to get him against? And that's what the Mishnah is talking about. And the Mishnah says, near the end of the first Mishnah, it says, Omer Evod Eilech, I'm going to go and I'd like to go and worship. Want to join me? Ha'omer Evod, or Eilech Evod, or Neilech Evod, or Ezbach Eilech, all these things, you're chayiv over there. That's called the masis, if the person agrees. Rashi says over there, have a masis v'chayiv. In other words, when the masis says he incites him to do something, there's two people here. There's the masis, the inciter, and the one who's incited. That's the nisus. Now, it only works. The nisus is only chayiv if he agrees. If he agrees, the pasuk says there, lo sova lo tishmai love. Don't listen. Don't listen to him. Don't agree and listen. If you agree and you listen, then you're also chayiv, right? The masis is chayiv for trying to incite you. The nisus is chayiv if he was taka incited. Now we come to the question: if as soon as he agrees that he's incited, that he wants to do avodah zarah, the nisus, is he chayiv then, or is he only chayiv, if he actually does the avodah zarah? So here we're going to talk about this discussion, but it's important to see that Mishnah because the Mishnah clearly there says it's talking about the masis being chayiv. Our Gemara is talking about the nisus being chayiv. When is he chayiv? So we have a story here. Rav Hamnuna lost his oxen. They got lost. He went looking for him. Pagabe Rabba, he met Rabba, Ramalei, and Rabba asked him this question. He asked him, steer the Mishnah. Tanan, our Mishnah says that if you worship avodah zarah, you're chayiv misa, you're chayiv skila, right? Obeden, Omer lo. If he just says, only if he actually worships. If he just said, yeah, I will worship, that doesn't do anything. Omer lo. We learned in another Mishnah, or it's we learned later on. The Mishnah I just showed you on Daf Samach Zayin. Homer Evod. If the guy says, I'm going to worship, Eilech Evod, I'm going to worship, Neilech, let's go together with Navod. Now we're talking about the masis over there. We're talking about the masis because it says, let's go. I'm going to worship. Come with me. Let's go worship. We're talking about the masis, right? But it also means the nisus, as Rashi explains over here. If the nisus agrees that he's chayiv. So in other words, from our Mishnah, we see only if he actually worshipped. If you worship, you're chayiv. If you didn't worship, you're not chayiv. Either Mishnah over there is mashma. If the masis told the guy, let's go worship, and the guy agreed, even if the guy didn't, even the nisus didn't worship yet, he's mashma, he's chayiv there too. So that's the steer that he's asking. And that's the steer we're going to be dealing with till the end of the daf. Are you chayiv only if you actually worship, or if you agree to worship? No, the first Mishnah, our Mishnah is talking about, yes, if you agree to worship, you're already chayiv. You agree to the avodah zarah, you're chayiv. Our Mishnah, which says you only chayiv ha'obed, only if you did, is speaking about, he says, I'm not makabel unless I actually do it. I'll agree to it, but only if I actually bow down do I agree to accept the avodah zarah. Otherwise, I don't. That's the answer is Mishnah. Rav Yosef says, no, Tanai Shakzamah, what kind of a Tanoi Shakzamah? What are you taking different Tanoi? What are you asking Kasha from our Mishnah on that Mishnah? Even though it's in the same parak, right? Usually it's the same, author, if it's a Stam Mishnah, but he says, what are you taking different Tanam for? Tanoi, it's a Machlokas Tanam, Detanya, Omer Bo Avduni. Let's say a man says, please come and worship me. I'm the God. Right, like Saddam Hussein or somebody like that, or Paro, right? I'm a god. Come and worship me. Rav Meir Machayev. Talking about if he's a Jew, of course, you go, you can kill anybody. But talking about if the Jews come worship me. Rav Meir Machayev. Rav Meir says you're chayev at that point. Rav Yehuda Potter. Yehuda says you're Potter. Now, if you actually worship the guy called that includes even a human being. First, we ask, how is that possible? By the way, this whole story started with Rav Nuna, who lost his oxen, and he went looking for them. And Rabba asked Makasha, he didn't say, Rav Nuna didn't say, listen, I'm busy looking for my oxen. Can you bring up this question later or send me an email and ask me this question? He didn't say that. He answered him right away. The Torah was so dear to them. He didn't say I'm busy right now. Right? That's the Yad Ramah, others that bring this idea that he didn't give that as an excuse. So he says, if you actually worship them, everybody agrees you're chayiv, even though it's not clear that a man is a pesel, right? But he says, lo sas lo pesel. Everybody agrees if he worships chayiv. Keep pligi b'tibor mi'alma, when he simply agreed, worship me. And he said, yeah, okay, yeah. Rav Meir Savar dibur milsa. That's material. He said something that's good enough. You're chayiv. Rav Yehuda Savar dibur lav milsa. In other words, so Rabbi Yosef's answer to the question, to the steer between our Mishnah and the Mishnah on Sam Zayin is, we're talking about two different cases. We're talking about two different Mandam Amram. Our Mishnah says, the Mishnah over there that talks about just agreeing. He says he's going to do it, and Nissus agrees. That's Rav Meir. Our Mishnah's Rabbi Yehuda says, Dibur is lav milsa. Unless he actually did something, doesn't count. Hard Rabbi Yosef, then Rabbi Yosef retracted. He says, lav milsa, dummy. What I said is not true. Even Rabbi Yehuda and our Mishnah also is that b'dibur is chayiv if you agree to do the avodah zarah. The time Rabbi Yehuda Omer lo olam ein chayiv ad she'omer, you're not chayiv in that case. Where what? Where Reuben said to Shimon, worship me. You're not chayiv ad she'omer evod elech ve'evod neilch. You're not chayiv there at all, right? You're not chayiv in a regular case of mesis where he says, come do worship avodah zarah with me. You're not chayiv. Until he says that. So Dibur alone, he just says it. Now again, the Mishnah there is talking about the Mesis saying that, but he says it to the Mesis. The Mesis says it, and the Nissus agrees. Our Gemara is talking about the Chiv on the Nissus. There he's talking about the Mesis, but still, when the Mesis says something, the Mesis could be chayiv even if Nissus doesn't agree. But if Nissus agrees, he's chayiv at that point, according to the way we're learning that Mishnah now. But ma'ikamifically, so what's the machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Meir? Says that one's Rabbi Yehuda, one's Rav Meir, right? So Rabbi Yehuda is our Mishnah, says Dibur lav milsa, and Rav Meir holds Dibura is milsa. That's Rav Meir and Samasai. Now Rabbi Yosef says no. Everybody agrees everybody agrees. Both Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Meir agree that if you cite to avodah zarah and the Nissa says, yeah, I agree, he's chayiv there too. Ma'ikamifically, the Mesis la'atzmo. The only machlokas is when the Mesis says worship me, not let's go worship the avodah zarah. You worship the avodah zarah and you agree, everybody says you're chayiv. It says when you worship me, because when you say worship me, not everybody takes you seriously. That's machlokas. V'amri lei, and he answered him, Ain, yeah, I'll worship you. Kamifli, that's the machlokas. Mesis la'atzmo, v'amri lei, they told him, Ain, yeah, kamifli, that's the machlokas. Mar savar mesis la'atzmo, shamilei. Right, when he says over here, Rav Meir who says that what, that you're chayiv, even mesis la'atzmo, he says, Shamalei, Vain to come and pushed it. When he says, yeah, I'll agree. Oh, worship me. Oh, you're a god? Okay, yeah, I'll take a worship you. Mar Savar, Rabbi Yehuda says, no, Mesis, Latzmal Shami doesn't agree to him. Maimer, Amri certainly say, My Shnei none. What do you mean? I should worship you? Why don't you worship me? How are you different than me? It doesn't take this thing. My Shnei you, Minanti, how are you different than me? Vain to come. I said, yeah. They're just laughing at him. Guy says to you, I'm a god. You want to worship me? Worship me here. By the way, I take donations too. Sit 46. You can worship me. Nobody takes you seriously. What do you have? A yeshiva? What are you? An institution? I should worship you. So he says, second. That's the machlokus over here. But when it comes to mesis for avodah zarah, for a real avodah zarah, and he's telling, let's go worship there. Everybody agrees that if the mesis, as soon as you have evidence that he tried to incite, he's certainly chayiv. And the Nissus, if the Nissus agrees, it's chayiv right there. What about the steer in our mission? Again, let's go back to the original kasha that Rabbah asked Rav Amnuna when Rav Amnuna was looking for his oxen. He said, what's in our mission and that Mishnah? It's a steer. He says, this is the difference. The difference is, was the Nissus an individual or was it a multitude of people? If he tried to incite an individual, he's not going to ask anybody else. He's not going to take advice from somebody else or ask others for advice. So he says, let's worship. Okay, I'll go along with you. Then he's chayiv right then. The Nissus is chayiv as well as the masses. V'toi basrei. Rabbi mimlechi. If you have a multitude of people, there's always going to be somebody who says, "Hey, does this guy really know what he's talking about?" They're not so sure. So even if they agree, it doesn't mean they really agree. And until they actually do the avodah zarah, they're not chayiv. So our Mishnah is speaking about by a rabbim, where he incited many people. You're not chayiv until they actually do it. But if he incited one person, the person will follow him. Below to obasrei. A multitude of people will not listen. Amar Rav Yosef, how do I know that one person you're chayiv for? The Chassidut says lo sover lo is an individual. Don't listen to the insider. Don't listen to the mason. Lo tishma. Don't listen to him. Ha'ava v'shama. But if you wanted to and you listen to him, you're chayiv. So that's what Rabbi Yosef's answer is. And as Rabbi Yosef is answering the stira, first we said what was the first answer we gave? He says, well, the Mish versus Mish being where he said specifically, I'm not going to worship and I'm not accepting it until I actually do the avoda. That's what our Mish is speaking about. But he's not chayiv. Achi Abdenu, the koka, as long as he didn't serve him, he says, I'm not so sure until I worship him, don't count me in. Rabbi Yosef says the difference is he an individual? Is he a rabbin? If it's a rabbin, not necessarily going to listen to him. If he's a yachid, that's what the mission of Mem Zayin and Samach Zayin is speaking about. So Abayas the kasha now to Rabbi Yosef. Mishani ben Nisl Rabbin this yachid. What's the difference if he's inciting one person or worsening many? We're not talking about a whole city like in Irni Dachs, which we'll talk about. But what's the difference if he incited one person, if he incited 10 people? The same rule should apply. By the time we learn, the pasuk there in Varm says, if this person incites you, meaning your brother, son of your mother, we'll talk about later on why does it say achicha bani mecha? We had that before. Whether the incited person is an individual, or whether it's many people. Right? It says it doesn't make any difference if it's one or many. It doesn't say how many. The pasuk did say that a yachid is different than a rabbin. Why? Yachid michal rabbin. The difference is what? That if it's a rabbin like an iradi dachas, when he did many people, lahachmer. In other words, basically the insider is the same. He's doing the same incitement whether he did the iradi dachas or with a multitude of people, like a whole city. It doesn't mean every person in the city. We'll see the people who followed it, or an individual. So, but what's the difference between an individual and a rabbin? Yachid michal rabbin lahachmer al gufo, because if a yachid does the avodah zarah and he's not part of an irni dachas, not part of a multitude, he gets skila, whereas a multitude gets sayif hereg ulahakal al mamono, and his money is saved, meaning his assets are not destroyed. Rabbin mechal yachid, rabbin is different than a yachid. Why the hakal al gufam? Because they have an easier punishment of hereg, not skila. Ulahachma mamonim, but we're more stringent with their money because their money is all burnt up. All their assets are burned up. So baham milsa hu deshani. That's the only difference between a yachid and a rabbin. The difference is what do they kill, the skila or basayif, and what happens to their assets? But when it comes of everything else, it should be the same. So if they agree to the insider, they're chayiv for avodah zarah, and if they didn't agree, then they're not chayiv. Doesn't make any difference one or many. Elam Rabaya. What's the difference between our Mishnah and the Mishnah on Samach Zayin? Was he incited by others or by himself? If he just decided on his own, he read some books, he saw on the internet, this is a good avodah zarah, he wasn't incited by anybody else, so then he might change his mind. Again, he's not so sure, wasn't convinced yet, he just saw it on the internet or somebody told him about it or whatever, nobody incited him, so he might change his mind, so he's not chayiv until he actually did the avodah zarah. That's right in our Mishnah, but just saying that he's going to doesn't mean anything. Oven Omer Lo, if he just said he's going to do it, that doesn't count because he wasn't incited by anybody else, so he wasn't convinced, right? So that's what he says. But if there were other people there who convinced him, meaning one insider incited him to do it, then he's going to follow them. So the Mishnah over there on Samach Zayin talk about where he was incited by somebody else, then he's chayav. The Mishnah specifically is talking about the insider. But the incited, if he listens to him, he's going to follow him. So he's chayiv. As soon as he agrees, he's chayiv also. Our Mishnah is speaking about he wasn't incited by anybody, just by himself. How do I know this? Again, the pasuk is lo so v'lo sishma. If you were incited, right? But if you shouldn't listen to the insider. But if you listen to him, you agree, you're chayiv right then and there, even before you actually worship the avodah zarah. You're on the way. So that's what he says. So if there was no insider, then you're not chayiv because you didn't do anything yet. Rav says another answer. We have Rav Yosef's answer that it's a difference if it's one or many. Abaya's answer is that were you incited by somebody else or just on your own? Rav says and both of them are speaking about where you were incited by others, meaning there was an insider, there was a masis. And in one case, the insider gave reasons. He gave you a whole speech. This is how the avodah zarah eats. This is how avodah zarah drinks. Kach Mativa, this is how the Avodah Zarah does good for you. He's a good guy. He does good favors. Kach Maria, this is how he does bad for you. Hadlo Amarle. Kach, this we didn't say Kach Ocheles Kach Shosa. In other words, if he gave you all the reasons, this what this Avodah Zarah does a lot of good stuff. He does this, he does that. Oh, then you're convinced. Then as soon as you agree, you're chayiv. But if he didn't give you that, you don't really take him seriously. It says, don't follow the Avodah Zarah. Don't follow the gods of these other nations that are around you. The ones who are close to you and the ones who are far away. Now, what's the difference if they're closer or far away? Avodah Zarah is Avodah Zarah. That's what he said. From the characteristics of the nearby ones, right? What does that mean? When he tells you Avodah Zarah, Meses tells you, oh, you should go far away, go 10,000 miles, you go to India, there's an Avodah Zarah, he does anything you want, he'll listen to you. So you figure, okay, maybe he's right, but you might as well look at an Avodah Zarah that's nearby, and you see an Avodah Zarah nearby, can't do anything, it's just eight and vav on him, so you learn from there. My love, that's when do you believe the insider? When he tells you good things, right? So the pasuk's telling you, don't listen to his good things, because look at an avodah there, it's nearby. You can see that they can't do anything; they have no ability to do anything. So you learn from there. But the point is that why did he tell you? What's the point of Rekom Rechokim? Because if it's far away, he says, oh, it does this. You should go there. It's far away. So maybe you'll accept it because you don't know. So the pasuk's telling you, no, look at the ones that are nearby. Just like the ones nearby can't do anything, the ones that are far away can't do anything either. But you see over here that how does he convince you? By telling you all these characteristics. So if he tells you the characteristics, then you believe him. And as soon as you agree you're chayiv, then this is chayiv like the Meses. If he doesn't tell you those things, you don't really accept him, and therefore you're put. And therefore you're not the Meses could be chayiv because if there's evidence that if there's Adam that he tried to do this, he's chayiv. But the Nis is not chayiv until he actually followed. Rav Ashi Omar, Sefer B'Yisrael, but he gives it. So we've had here like 4 answers already. Here's the 5th answer between the 2 Mishnayos. Our Mishnah says that if you didn't do the Avodah Zarah, you're potter. Only if you did the Avodah Zarah. The Mishnah over there is mashma. As soon as you agree to it, you're chayiv. The Sefer over there speaking by Yisrael Mummer. Yisrael Mummer was already an apostate, so he's not going to change his mind. If you convince him a little bit, he'll certainly do it. Our Mishnah is speaking about a regular Yisrael, and that's why you're not chayiv until you actually do the Avodah Zarah. Vinomer lozu afsekani. No, the Mishnah means this. Not only if you didn't do the Avodah Zarah, but even if you agreed to the Meses, you're also chayiv. So we have like 6 different answers to explain the steer in the Mishnah. Itmar, a new thing. What happens if you did the Avodah Zarah, you worship the Avodah Zarah? We've explained already that Avodah Zarah you're chayiv on even anything that's done in the Beis Hamikdash, whether it's anything Avodah done in the Beis Hamikdash, whether it's Kedarka or Shalom Kedarka, or Hishtachava, which also, even if it's Shalom Kedarka, even if it's not the normal way to do it, as long as it's anything of Kavod. And there are certain things when you're chayiv, if you did it to Kedarka, even if it's not done in the Beis Hamikdash, like if you throw thrones at Markolis or you defecate in front of the Baal Por, that's also you're chayiv, all those things. What about if you worship the Avodah Zarah because you're afraid of man? In other words, like we'll see, like the case of Haman, right? Where it's sort of like we're afraid of man. In other words, a man says, "Listen, the government says you got to bow down to this Avodah Zarah." So you're not bowing down. You really don't want to worship Avodah Zarah, but you're bowing down out of love of the man, maybe because it's your friend says, "Oh, your best friend says do Avodah Zarah." Okay, I'll do it for you. I don't really mean it seriously. So you're not doing that out of a fear of the Avodah Zarah, out of a fear of a person, either fear of the government or some officer, or out of love because your friend's doing it. What's the halacha there? Abai Amar Chayiv. Abai says you're chayiv for Avodah Zarah. Rav Amar Potter says you're potter. Abai Amar Chayiv Apolcha. You did worship. Rav Amar Potter Ikable Avaloa and Ilola. Only if you accept it as a god. If you didn't accept it as a god, you are potter. Of course, doesn't mean you're allowed to, but it means you're potter at least in a chayiv misa. Amar Abai. Gemara goes on after the two. So Amar Abai. How do I know that? How do I know? Abai says you're chayiv. You're chayiv if you bow down to Avodah Zarah, even if you didn't mean, you had no feeling that this is a god or anything like that. You're just doing it either because you're afraid of the officer or because you love your friend. The Tanakh of Kachavim Echad Ove, and our Mishnah says Echad Ove, whether you Echad Ove, Bechna Mezavech, whether you worship or whether you slaughtered, burnt incense, etc. Now, what do you mean by both? My love, Echad Ove Me'avim doesn't mean whether you worshipped it out of Avon Yira or whether you did out of actual slaughtering, etc., etc. Maybe that's what means Echad Ove. That was the first piece of the Gemara after yesterday's Mishnah. What did maybe Yoma say? It means this: whether you did it kedarka, or whether you did it by slaughtering, offering incense, pouring a libation, or bowing down, even if that's shelo kedarka. That we already explained that. So Rava doesn't agree with that. Rava says that if you bow down out of ava or yira of a person, you're not chayiv for that. You're not chayiv misa, of course. It's you're still over. It's pater of a loser. I'm going to buy a I have another source. How do I know that if you bow down out of fear of love of man that you're chayiv? The time yesterday's pasuk, right? Now, don't bow down to your avodah zarah. You could bow down to a person. Let's say you go to the Queen of England and you have to bow down, or now they got a king there, right? You bow down to the king. That's not really awesome. You can bow down to a person. Why? Kamoscha, like you're not bowing down to him as a god. You're bowing down out of showing respect. Yachal, if he'll never come. What happens if he's worshipped like Haman? Haman made himself into a god. That's why Mordechai refused to bow down to him. He didn't say Mordechai might have bowed down to the king of England, but Oven made himself like a god. Yachal never come. Losa of Dame. It says Lo Shtachvem Velosa of Dame. But Haman Miyarave. Haman was only out of fear. Why did they bow down? Out of fear. They were afraid he's going to punish them if they don't bow down. And we see over here that it was also to do. So you see Velosa of Dame. So you see, even if you just bow down out of fear, it's also usher. So you see from the also of Dame, if he's like a god, you shouldn't bow down to him either. If he makes himself like a god, even if it's out of fear. But Rava will say, Kahaman v'lokum. It's not exactly like Haman. Kahaman di yugufa evaskom. It's like Haman. Oven made himself with a Zara. Below Kahaman di lo Haman miyira v'achala miyira. Haman was out of fear, ain't a chanami. But over here we're talking about where it's not out of fear. Losa of Dame. If a man makes himself to a god and you worship him because of that, then you're chayiv. But you don't see in the pasuk that it's yira. So again, Rava disputes Abai on that, and doesn't like in most cases in Shas, except for the 6th case of Yal Kagami, passing like Rava, that you wouldn't be chayiv there. Amar Abai says another source. The Tanya, listen to this. We have there's a parham of tzibur. If Bezdin Nagor Yerushalayim paskins wrong about something and says, let's say Chayla was mutter and everybody follows it, then the tzibur, then the Bezdin, they bring a parham of tzibur. Let's say the Kohen, the Meshuach, the Kohen Gadol. Let's say he makes a mistake and he paskins wrong based on his own ruling, on his own psak, then he has to bring what's called the Parko Mashiach. What about the Parko Mashiach who makes a mistake and does a vote of Zara? Rebbe Omer B'Shigas Meiser. When is he chayiv to bring the Seira, which is the punishment for doing a vote of Zara b'shogeg? If he makes a mistake in the b'shogeg, he thought this was okay to do. He made a mistake. First, he paskin wrong that there's no such thing, so to speak, as a voda zara. He paskin wrong. So there's just like by Param Dovashat Tzibur, where the Bezin paskin wrong and Rova the Tzibur followed that. When the Kohen Mashiach, there it talks also the Kohen Mashiach. That's also it's one of the Paramanis Rafim, the Parko Mashiach or the Param Dover. The Parko Mashiach is like the Param Dover, that it's only if you made a mistake and he paskin wrong and he followed that. Not if he just made a mistake in the action. So Rebbe says, when does the Kohen bring the carbon for avodah zara? If he made a mistake, shogeg, a simple mistake. Chachamim say no, it's only if he paskin wrong. They both agree. Rebbe and the Chachamim both agree that what's the carbon that you bring? A seira, a female goat. He's learned out of psukim that you don't bring an ashim tali in a case like that. If he wasn't sure, he doesn't bring an ashim tali there based on psukim. Rashi brings down the summit of the drasha. It's learned on Horios. It says Bashim Toli Shigaso twice. In other words, Mashiach Muhammad, the Parko Mashiach is usually brought for Helam Dover, not from when he made a mistake, when a psak, not when he simply made a simple mistake. So there's no Ashim Toli there. Now, what's we mean over here? The Kohen Gadol made a mistake and he worshipped avodah zara. And it says over there, he brings a seira. Okay, machlokes between Rebbe and the Chachamim, whether it's Shigas Maisa, where he just made a mistake, or he paskin wrong. Hechidami, what's this case of Shigas Maisa? Iksav, a basic knessu. What was the mistake that he made? If he thought it was a shul, and he bowed down, why is he chayiv for anything? Why is he chayiv Harei? His heart was in heaven. In other words, he thought this was a shul. They went on a tour. It turned out it was an avodah zara, but he thought it was a shul. So why is he chayiv anything? He says he has to bring a carbon. Ella, the chazan da'at must be that he saw a statue. He bowed down to it. So again, if he accepted as a god, he's a mason. You don't bring a carbon for a mason. That's certain carbonos you do by carbon biorid. But here for avodah zarah, if it was a mason, he's killed or he gets mishamayim if there's no edim asra. But he certainly doesn't bring a carbon for that. So if he thought it was a shul, he didn't do anything wrong. He bowed down. He's bowing down to God. He didn't. It must be that he saw a statue and he bowed down. So again, he didn't know. He knew it wasn't a shul. He saw a statue. If he bowed down and he thought it was accepted as a god, he's chayiv misa for that. He's mason. He doesn't bring carbon. The elo kibbul, if he didn't accept it as a god, lo klum. He didn't do. He was like bowing down to the king. He was just bowing down. He didn't accept it as a god. Why should he be chayiv anything? Elalab me have a miyira. Oh, says Abaya. Why is he chayiv a carbon? Because he bowed down out of love of man or out of fear of the government, of fear of man. He was afraid, and you see over here that he's chayiv a carbon. So therefore, that proves what Abaya said. However, it's called Ma'avir. Abaya says you're chayiv a carbon, and Rava says you're potter. Then he did it b'shogeg. He did it b'shogeg. You're chayiv a carbon. No, but Omer Mutter. It's not a case where it was a shogeg. Omer Mutter is different. Omer Mutter shogeg means you made a mistake. It was inadvertent. You didn't know what you were doing. You made they were missing something. Here it's speaking about where he mamish thought that it was mutter to do. He forgot that he forgot the whole concept of avodah zarah. Right? He says, Rav says, this should get ma'isa. Omer lavi should get ma'isa. El b'omer mutter levar's going to be suffer. There's no such thing as avodah zarah. He thought he knows what avodah zarah is. He didn't make a mistake. He just thought it's mutter. So Omer mutter haine helm davar. Isn't that the same as helm davar? And you said that the rabbis and the chachamim disagree. A Rebbe and the chacham disagree. Rebbe says that it's Pishigas Maisa, and the Chum say he's only chayav a carbon when it's Helm Davar. If Omer Mutter is the same as Helm Davar, what's the machlokas here? The answer is Ba'omer, Haim Helm Davar, says Ba'omer Mutter Legamri. Omer Mutter means he thinks the whole thing, there was no such thing as Avodah Zarah. Helm Davar is Kiyah mixes with bit mixes. Helm Davar means he forgot a particular act about it. In other words, he paskin that it's okay to do this, but he knew Avodah Zarah is asur. He just said, but this kind of Avodah Zarah is okay. That's what Helm Dover is. He paskin wrong about a specific thing. But Omer Mutter means he thought the whole thing is mutter. Omer Mutter, in a case like that, he's still chayiv. That's a kind of a shogi that he's chayiv for. So it's not avon yira. So Abayas maintains that if you bow down out of fear or love of man, you're chayiv. You're chayiv a carbon. It's the case of a shogeg. Rava says you're potter because that's not avodah zarah at all. You're just bowing down out of respect. It's like bowing down to the king. It's not you're not even accepting it as a god at all. It's simply like bowing down to the king, showing respect for the king. You're not really thinking it as avodah zarah. Abaya says no, that avir is also usher. Now, one thing that he said before, Rashi says when he talks about the Gemara says, what's the shigas ma'isa? If he thought it was a shul, there's nothing wrong with that. Halib of Shemayim. And Rashi says that if he's Rashi 4 lines from the bottom of the page says, even if he knows it's avodah zarah, he bows on heaven. Ein kan onish shrei af mishtach b'lebeis haknesses, af mishtach b'lebeis haknesses lo lebayis mishtach b'el ella shishach. When you bow down in a shul, you're not bowing down to the shul. Let's say we bow down on Yom Kippur, you're bowing down to the shul, to the building. No, you're bowing down to God. So even if you're in a base of avodah zarah and you bow down and you're thinking you're bowing down to God, you're not bowing down to the building at all. So it's mashma that it would be okay. Say to Mefarshim, no, not so simple. Not so simple. Says the Ritva, Rashi is afilim yadashu base avodah zarah v'shtachol l'shemaim nechayiv. V'amnam nira she'en chayiv misa carbon. You're not chayiv misa did it on purpose. Misa is certainly not a chayiv. Avavadi l'chechila b'zechlas. It's Yarek Balyav. You shouldn't bow down. What were all the cases? The 7 sons of Chana, right? Oh, they bowed down. They said, bow down or let yourself be killed. What's Yarek Balyav? They say, listen, bow down to this avodah zarah. We're going to kill you. What's the halacha? You have to let yourself be killed. That's one of the 3 capital cases of the cardinal cases of Yarek Valyavar, avodah zarah, shvichas damim, and Gilead Rayos. So how could you say, well, bow down if your kabbalah to God? What does that mean? So certainly it's usher to do. What's in your heart? Nobody could nobody could change what's in your mind. You should be killed because of Hashem. you want to make me do avodah zarah. Well, I'm going to do kiddush Hashem. So if it's a case of Kiddush Hashem, and they're forcing you to bow down, you can't say, well, I'm thinking of God when I bow down. That's Eric Valyavar, because of Kiddush Hashem, you're supposed to let yourself be killed. So certainly it's also to do that. It's also to bow down, even in a base of avodah zarah, even though you're thinking that it's for God. He's just telling you, right? He's just thinking of that. So if it was a case of it's certainly also to bow down in a case like that. It's just saying that you're not punished for that. He's the doesn't mean that it's mutter to do. Just means that you shouldn't be punished for that at all. You shouldn't have a carbon at all. Certainly not be killed for that. In any case, we have this machlokas Abai and Rabba, and we'll pick it up from here tomorrow, Mitzvah, from the 5th line of Tani Rav Zakkai. Have a good day. Shavuot Tov.
The Korean came in without minister from the government.
Right.
With the medal.
Right.
Walks in the door and he bows to me.
Right. Right.
Of course, I have to bow back to him.
Of course. There was no kavanah there for avodah zarah. Of course. You ever see an Asherah tree? I remember we were in the east, and
Where were you?
and in Hong Kong, in Macau, they have base of avodah zarah there. They have Bate avodah zarah. No. You okay? They have real avodah zarah. You can't go in there. You can't have to go into those places. Mamash avodah zarah. They got a building, and the tree goes right out of the building, grows right out of there. You know.
That's sure.
It doesn't look okay. You want a drink? You sure?
Okay. Just let me know. Come over and pick it up.